Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for being here for our panel discussion, Caribbean and Mexico, Traveling Beyond the Resort. I am your host and moderator today, Libawit Lily Gurma. I am editor-at-large at Skift. And welcome to our amazing panelists for this. Today, we have Corinne Johnson, who is co-owner and senior travel advisor at Journey Travels Company, also a top 10 agency with Travel Planners International. We have Tessa Davey, Managing Programming Director of Breeze Travel, and Casey Davey, Advisor at Breeze Travel. And we have Brian Major, Managing Editor, Digital Guides and Publications for the Caribbean at travelpulse.com, and with extensive background in cruise-related trade journalism and public relations. Welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for being here. I'm very excited about our discussion today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Sure. So traveling beyond the resorts is a topic that's always been really pertinent with the Caribbean and sometimes controversial, even before the pandemic. But now we've had 2 years of global crises and economic crises, and it's becoming a really relevant discussion to talk about how tourism is benefiting destinations and locals beyond resorts. And that really is what we're here to tackle and to talk about how we've progressed in the Caribbean. So let's jump right in. Are Caribbean and Mexico destinations closer now to seeing travelers exploring beyond the resort? Or has the pandemic worsened the situation as far as guests getting out there? Who wants to jump in? Brian?
Okay. Yeah. Yes. I think it's. I don't think it's a mixed bag. I think it's a mixed picture, really. I think yes and no. To some extent, certainly, the conditions of the pandemic and people traveling in its aftermath. I always use post-outbreak, not post-pandemic, because the pandemic really has not ended. Right. It's post-outbreak. So post-outbreak travel, people certainly, one of the factors that allowed and enabled travel following the outbreak was a means of sequestration at resorts, resilient corridors, the system used in Jamaica, where travelers were mainly within a certain region of the country that was primarily tourist region. Similar programs and quarantines of different varying degrees allowed people to begin to travel again and people to go to resorts. So certainly there was a kind of a keeping people on the resort. But at the same time, I must say that the wanderlust that was unleashed following the pandemic, and then even started before that, really in the really strong economic travel times of 2019, part of that growth was from independent travelers, people who research online, people who are aware of different destinations that do have programs and cater to people who are willing to go off the resort, willing to see cultural aspects of the destinations that are marketing their cultural aspects. So there was growth in that side of being away from the resort, being outside the resort, being independent and exploring on your own. The pandemic changed everything, as it did with everything, and impacted every single thing about our lives. And so in some senses, there was growth, but in some senses, no.
Okay.
Things did not change. That's my thought.
Right. Thank you. Corinne?
I agree. There's two types of traveler right now, mainly what I'm seeing. You have the ones that are still really scared of a lot of things, and they love the idea of an all-inclusive resort where you can get your chicken fingers and feel really safe, and like you just moved your regular life over to the resort, but at least you're on a beach, right? And then you have the ones that are like YOLO, everything can be wiped out in an instant. I want to be doing things that my friends haven't done. I want to be experiencing more exciting things. I'm willing to spend more, and I'm willing to be more adventurous. I'm not seeing a whole lot in the middle of that. I'm seeing basically those two extremes. Yeah.
Great. Interesting. Tessa, do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I kind of agree with most of what has been said. It hasn't worsened. I think there had been a trend prior to the pandemic of persons wanting to explore some more, get out from behind the walls. This has just made it, yes, I really want to be out there. And with the demographics changing, we have more of those persons who don't want to do what our old folks did. They want to get out there, meet the people,
Right.
see the culture, eat the food, climb the mountains. And so that has kind of just exploded now. And we will see a lot more of that. The Generation X, the Millenniums, the Ys,
Right.
and they have disposable income to try different things. So I think it has opened up the field a lot more for this kind of get out from behind the wall attitude.
Wow, that's great. Oh, that's great to hear. Okay, so there's progress there, even though there's still a little bit of fear. So let's talk about the marketing, because obviously with this segment that's growing, as Tessa mentioned, the new generation, and before the pandemic, and more interest in immersion. All of the trends also in other regions show that this is the case, and that folks really want to immerse in the places that they're visiting. They want to travel slower, but they also just want to go home and tell a different story. And yet the marketing, I feel, of the Caribbean hasn't quite kept up with this emerging demand for immersion and culture. A lot of the images are still sea, sun, and stand, which I get to some point, but a lot of times it just feels a little too sort of sanitized. I've stayed long-term, just like you all, in the Caribbean, and I know that it's not, it's wild, it's rustic, it's unexpected, and that's the beauty of it, but that is not what I'm seeing in marketing images. So Tessa, I want to ask your opinion on how can Caribbean destinations better market and distinguish themselves from their neighbors in a way that goes beyond that sun and sand message at this time?
Well, the first point here for me is collaboration. The islands, the destinations need to collaborate a lot more with each other. We all have some common factors, some similarities, but we've all got uniqueness in each destination that needs to be explored more. The focus must be on matching the customer's needs with what the island has to offer, blending the two of them so that, meaning having the right niche or themed packages that includes the desired market. So for example, divers, you've got the divers who just only want to dive. Yes. You can send them to different destinations where diving is unique. However, it has its own special dive sites that go down, of interest. I don't know anything about diving, but yes. And then you have maybe the same diver, but he has a little bit of ecotourism interest. You can combine the two things. You can have him hiking through the rainforest and have him combine that with a package on one destination. And so you meet his own particular needs and you use the destination's uniqueness to help offer those kinds of packages. I think that's one of the bigger places we can go do a lot more packaging.
Okay. So packaging around shared interests. Okay.
Yes.
Corinne, were you going to say something?
On the note of collaboration, I think a great idea for any of these companies based in the Caribbean are to make sure that the travel advisor community is aware of these experiences. Because when I say to a client, oh, have you ever thought about taking a tortilla class in someone's home, and they haven't. But right. If I don't know that, I have the privilege of living in Mexico. So I know these things, but I don't know much. I know some things about Dominican Republic because I did Fathom cruises when those were a thing. And that was really amazing to get into the community. But there's a lot of things I don't know. And if I did, not only would it benefit me because it would really help me establish my authority with my clientele, but I will be, if I'm not telling them these things because I don't know them, we're going to be booking the same old.
Right.
Because we don't know it exists.
Right. I mean, and that's also the role of the media, right? I mean, Brian, is the media making progress in what I call decolonizing the image of the Caribbean as only sea, rum, and sun? Like, I mean,
that's a great question, but I want to start by adding on Corinne's point. That was that's a great point, that travel advisors should be in the loop, whether that's happening through tourism boards, reaching out to the advisors, whether the advisors are taking the responsibility to make sure they know what the tourism board is and the destination that they're selling. Really, it's a tourism board, because I mean, you're the one with the information. They should be having outreach, and I know some who do to advisors, but that should increase. That should be there. But I want to, and Lily, I'm going to get you a point about the media, because I do think there's some points to make there. But I want to get to a point that is relevant to the cooperation among destinations in terms of marketing. Now, I was a public relations director for CLIA, the Cruise Association, between 2003 and 2006. And we had it's fascinating that it's a similar problem. Our organization represented all of the cruise lines, right? And we're supposed to market the idea of cruising. Well, cruising on Carnival is not like cruising on Princess, and cruising on Princess is not like cruising on Regent Seven Seas, and cruising on Regent Seven Seas is not like cruising on Ipiritiki. So it was extremely difficult to get these competitors, but still colleagues, and all contributing money to this organization of their own, to come up with a sole marketing message. Because in private conversations, they're like, I'm not Carnival, why should I? They have their own marketing, and I have my own, and I also have my own marketing, and the organization and message. And I've found in working, unfortunately, in Caribbean travel and tourism, that's an issue. The destinations have to, there are destination organizations that have not been strong in recent years. And the message of traveling to the Caribbean overall is not being provided with that kind of forum. And those original kind of experiences kind of get lost in that sense.
Very vanilla.
As Lily says, this is an opportunity for the media to promote a message of the Caribbean that emphasizes its tremendous diversity. It's a tremendous 200 million square mile region.
Right.
So I mean, it's tremendously diverse, tremendously different. And Lily knows, we all know, there's so many different experiences. It's not the same. But I will say one thing, is that some of these companies, media is one thing. Some of the companies that are marketing to mass audiences. They want a mass message rather than a endemic small message. So
sadly,
it's hard to it's hard to expect those companies to kind of promote that. So it is the responsibility of the media, and in my own way, I try to do that. So hopefully,
Yes, you have. Corinne, I'm gonna turn to you for a second, because travel advisors, are really key, obviously, to selling the Caribbean. They're a huge part of it. But when I go into the group, for example, the travel advisor selling the Caribbean group, a lot of times I see posts and questions that center immediately around a brand or a resort. And really, I come away feeling like the focus is, or rather the brand or the resort is the destination. The destination itself is lost in that initial picture. And I find that highly problematic. And I wonder, how do we change this narrative of the resort being the destination, and which ultimately contributes to islands also being seen as interchangeable. So how do you address that with your clients, whether it's Mexico or other places?
I want to cover two sides of that. So number one, one of the first questions I ask my clients if they come to me for a resort vacation is this a vacation or is this a trip? Do you just want to sit on the beach and have someone bring you drinks, or do you want to have experiences? Do you want to actually experience the destination? And some people, and fair enough, they really just want to sit on the beach. And then I'm not going to waste time trying to convince them otherwise. But if they show any interest, that's when we start talking about more opportunities to elevate what I call basic bitch travel, which is 90% of my business. I sell cruises and I sell all-inclusive resort packages. And unless I do something to elevate that experience, it's gonna stay basic. But here's the thing. We take these FAMs, right? A resort brand will take us on a FAM, and we do not experience a destination. What we do is see every room category that resort has to offer, which does not help me sell that destination.
Oh, right.
We sweat, we walk upstairs, we walk downstairs. Here's the suite, here's the lead-in, no, we need to experience. Yes, I want to get the vibe of the property. Show me the lead-in and show me one of the exceptional suites. I don't need to see everything in between. I want to eat there, and then I want to know what is to do around there. But that's all it is. I just saw a Facebook message or a post the other day. This advisor was saying she's doing 16 resorts in 4 days. That's the FAM, nothing but touring resorts.
God, are you serious?
That's a huge problem.
Travel journalism.
Huge problem.
Yeah, wow. And you
But
don't even remember half of it by the time you're gone. I don't think. I don't know.
You know nothing but what rooms look like.
So I want to go back to the basic B thing. Isn't there a way to transform those people and just find a way to sort of nudge them, just a little bit of nudge?
Absolutely. Well, and that's why I ask leading questions like, do you actually want to experience the destination? And maybe they hadn't really thought about it. And then I try to ask questions in my inquiry forms. And it's actually the way my business is going right now is really going much harder on that topic. When you give examples, would you rather do this or this? This or this? They haven't thought about it. That's why it's so important to equip us with that knowledge. And even when I do a tourism board presentation, a lot of times it's like, well, this beach is swimmable, this one isn't, these resorts are here. That's all good to know, but I'm going to be able to sell that destination so much more if I can paint the picture of an experience that my clients can have in that destination. So we just need, as an industry, to be focusing on those things and talking about, I mean, some of my clients want to know that their money is going directly into the community when they take these experiences, you know, some of them don't care. They just want their chicken fingers and an armchair, you know, but more people are interested if you give them that little bit more of information that they were not aware of. But you're right. We focus too much on which resort should I put you at. So
let's talk about sustainable travel, which really is what we just talked about: local experiences, immersion. Tessa and Casey, I know you have a new platform that basically tries to provide a solution listing cultural immersion and tours for travel agents to access, because a lot of that information is hard to find for even the average person, let alone a travel advisor. So do you want to tell us a little bit about what that new platform is that you've launched or that you'll be launching and how it works?
Well, just to enter, before I introduce that platform, I want to go back to what we were just talking about, where the collaboration on the islands and between the islands themselves. The local tour operators should be the gatekeepers of each destination, and they should be the ones being introduced in a large scale on FAM trips. So it shouldn't be simply a resort having the FAM trip. It should be the island having a FAM trip, whereby everybody gets a piece of the action and you can see some tours do all kinds of different things. So they should be the one, excuse me, showing the pride in their islands.
I want to clap for that suggestion. I'm sorry, this is really, really, really great. Really great comment. Yeah. Okay.
Then back to Corinne. Once we have that information as a destination, we share that with Corinne and her travel agents and all of them, so that they are not stumped with, oh, you only want sun and sea? No, I want to see the island. And then they have the ammunition and the tools to sell the destination as a whole with all of the accommodation that it comes with.
Gotcha. I know Karen was talking about what travel agents sight see when they're doing their site inspections, but on the media side, Brian, talk to us a little bit about some of the experiences lately that you've had on press trips. I mean, how can tourism boards better collaborate with the media to you're muted, to produce unique content?
I think I better first say that I should advise everyone who's listening that travelpulse.com is a great place to get advice and information on destinations that you might travel to, including the Caribbean, on travel and tourism, on resources for travel agent and travel advisors, and all of the information you might need on hotels and a destination. And particularly the Caribbean. My coverage is every day and during the week, and we cover spot news as well. We also do some presentations, including webinars where you'll find out information about specific destinations. So take a look at travelpulse.com and you'll find all the information there. When I'm traveling around the country, around the globe, around the Caribbean these days, you know, I mean, I've found, again, it's kind of a mixed bag. It is challenging still at times. It's lessening. It's easing. The restrictions that are attached to entering Caribbean nations are easing. And those restrictions, by the way, are what have enabled people to, again, be able to travel. And the Caribbean, in my estimation, did an exemplary job overall in using science-based methods to keep their populations safe and to enable travel again. That's going to have to continue. I mean, you know, we don't have this is not the end, certainly, of any pandemic. We don't know what else is going to happen, what else could come down the pike. But we do know the value of travel and what we want. Sustainability has to be part of that. And it's not just a responsibility of the resort. It's not just a responsibility of the destination. It's not just a responsibility of the cruise line. It sounds corny, but it's a responsibility of all of us. I mean, what you can do as a person in your community extends to the international community. That's where someone lives, and the people there have to be invested in keeping their own community safe and sustainable. Same for the companies, any company that operates within there. You know, I hear a lot of criticism warranted about resorts. I hear a lot of criticism warranted at times about cruise lines, but I don't hear criticisms about municipalities that don't manage waste, that don't have processes for these. That I go to Caribbean islands and I've seen dumps, I've seen environmental damage all over. So I mean, you know, it's not just at the resort. Everyone has a piece to play in protecting our home, which is this planet.
Well, that's why we're here, right? If this conversation is not happening enough, I feel, as far as Caribbean destinations are concerned, it's sort of, let's just go have fun and get some sea and sand and leave destinations with their plight, you know, in terms of coral damage and, you know, sargassum, which none of us really caused, but it's happening. And now they're avoiding certain places because, well, that's not convenient on your vacation. I mean, there's a lot of sort of not my problem approach when it comes to the Caribbean that you don't see with other destinations. And so that kind of segues into what I want to ask Corinne, which is, and what I feel, which is that we need more education overall when it comes to sustainable travel, what your impact is on destinations for the Caribbean. And I feel that there's a lot of lack of knowledge or lack of cultural sensitivity that emerges out of travel advisors. And we all know because it's mostly a non-diverse group. And there are biases that show up. And I mean, I see it, you know, a few times. I've seen it in the group, in the task group as well. For example, you know, an advisor coming in and saying, well, don't send your customers to such destination. I'll say it, the Dominican Republic, which I know really well, among others, and because the food is terrible. And the food they're talking about is the resort food most of the time, probably the one specific or one or two resorts they've been to. Now that drives me crazy because I know the Dominican Republic, I've been everywhere, and I know the cuisine has nothing to do with what's in the resorts. So how do we change this lack of cultural sensitivity to Caribbean cultures as diverse as they are across, you know, all of these islands and destinations? I don't know, but I'd love to hear what you think, Corinne.
Well, I think I'm always shocked at a group of people who are generally pretty well traveled at how little they know or potentially even care about the local community. It's very surprising to me. And once again, it's it's going back to the only education we are receiving is about what the resorts have to offer and not about the community and not about what's happening around those resorts. And then you go on a FAM and you don't see any of it. It's easy to travel in a little bubble. Yeah. And that is what some people want to do. There are certainly travelers that want to do that. I really try to talk to my clients about how tourism should be a give and take. It should be mutually beneficial. It's not for you to just go in and take what you want and leave. But a lot of advisors, I don't think are comfortable saying things like that, or that's not in their own belief system. So I think the key is just simply to keep hammering that message in, keep talking about the communities, the people, the experiences, and how tourism affects them, especially when we don't extend those dollars deeper into the community. Yeah. But it's a consciousness issue on a lot of levels, because I've traveled with other advisors that will do, suddenly they'll go into someone's home for a meal and they're blown away and they say it's the best thing I've ever done. And like all they ever sell is like regular group tours where you're herded like sheep and you just go check things off a list. It's just a lot more messaging, a lot more awareness.
Thank you. That's a great point. And I totally agree with what Brian said as well, which ties into it, which is that it's everyone's responsibility. And also the fact that, travel advisors can learn from media too, but some of us who focus on the Caribbean. And so go to Travel Pulse, Brian knows, exactly what's happening in all these destinations. I write also, from the business side of travel and cover some of the issues in the industry and why it's important to give back to communities and why tourism has to benefit more than these companies that are in it for themselves. And so, go to skiff.com also and learn about that, and go to travelpulse.com. And I just wish there was more bridging between our segments in the industry, including advisors and media, and more collaboration that way to learn. And so let's move on to safety. Safety is obviously at the forefront today more than ever when it comes to travel. And, as we know, the Caribbean has had its fair share of being bashed in the media for small or large incidents in a way that is disproportional to many other places. And then there's the resorts also that used to say, and I don't know if they still do this, but they used to say, it's dangerous to go off resort, don't do it. How do we balance safety considerations? How do we encourage going off resort while at the same time making folks understand that it's not any riskier than being out in New York City these days? So I see Brian nodding, but how can we get travel advisors to encourage people to go outside the walls, but at the same time, explain that, okay, it's a little exaggerated, it's not that dangerous, or is it your responsibility? I don't know. How risky is it?
Well, that's the problem. It's tricky on our end from a liability standpoint. So I was telling you the other day that if someone comes to me and they're flat out like, I do not want to go to Mexico, and I hear it all the time and it makes my blood boil while I smile. Anywhere but Mexico. I'm not going to try to talk someone into something they are not comfortable doing. However, I will absolutely share my own experiences and the experiences of my other clients and just try to get them to be a little more open. But at the end of the day, if someone says to me anywhere but Mexico, I'm just going to send them somewhere else because of my liability. Now, on a personal level with one of my friends, and living in central Mexico, I hear it all the time. And my niece is coming to visit me and I have to fly home with her because my brother's convinced she will be sex trafficked.
Oh my
God. What I mean? So on a personal level, I can say to people a lot more strong words, but for a client,
they don't do that,
you have to be careful.
Right.
So, it's hard for us to balance that, but we need to share our own stories. We need to share our own travels. We need to show ourselves in destinations. We need to talk about what our clients are doing, because people feel more comfortable when they see other people doing it, and especially if they have a connection to those people. So if I post a video of my clients enjoying an experience in a destination, my clients know me, they trust me, that's my other client. It brings it a little bit closer to home.
Casey, how can destinations handle safety concerns and any sort of incidents that have been happening? What can they do better to sort of address it? Does they have to be completely transparent? Is there not enough transparency? What are your opinions on that? As a marketer.
Sorry, my voice is shot now.
Oh, sorry. Tessa,
can you take that one for me?
Certainly. Again, it all boils down to collaboration and education. If you can't educate people, for example, a person in Quebec, Montreal, was convinced that there was winter in Barbados. Now, I don't know where she got that. Somebody said to her, don't go down there, it's going to be cold. I said, you sure it was Barbados? Yes. I said, come on, I am from down there. Let me tell you, we don't have winter down there. And it took me half an hour to talk to this person and educate them that we don't have winter in the Caribbean. She was thinking perhaps Bermuda or something, excuse me, where there's a little bit cooler weather. So education is the key. Educate the travel agents so they can educate the clients, who will then sort of temper their expectations and their understanding of what the Caribbean is made up of. I mean, there are certain things that we're no different than the rest of the world. But if we keep on harping on the negatives and not on more of the positives, we're not telling you to go where you're going to be not comfortable, but we must tell you what we have that can fit what you're looking for. And so we keep on, I've heard this, don't go to the Caribbean during the hurricane season, you're going to get into trouble, don't go down. So we have had a dead season for years after the peak season. And that's not true. Every island has a different propensity to what that hurricane landfall can be. And we need to, and that's where the collaboration comes in. So if Barbados doesn't get so much, we use Barbados for some parts of it. St. Lucia hasn't had a lot of hurricanes in donkeys yet. Yeah. But yet we are lumped with the negative of hurricane season being bad for you to travel. So from Travel Pulse, from ourselves, we need to say, no, there are windows in each island in which you can go to visit that particular island and fill up the middle parts of the calendar with visitors coming to the island.
Can I say something? I love hearing Tessa say that, because I've been like, for the last 10 years, all I hear is it's hurricane season, inside and outside the industry. It's hurricane season. Everything is like supposed to stop. Not every Caribbean destination is impacted by a hurricane during hurricane season. As Tessa said, there are windows. It's creating a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly.
I hate cliches. It's creating a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it's part of what this lack of, again, what Corinne is talking about, a lack of education and understanding. We have to, how we get the messages out through Breeze Travel, through their wonderful applications, through Travel Pulse, through however we get these messages out, that the key is, as Corinne says, education. We have to teach more about what each destination is like, what it's about, why it's, why you take, as I tell my friends, they're like, oh, is it safe to go there? I'm like, is New York safe? Is Chicago safe? Is Philadelphia safe? Is Los Angeles safe? You take the same precautions you take everywhere else. You don't do things you wouldn't do anywhere else. You don't go places you wouldn't go anywhere else with people you don't know. And, and we have to continue to let people know that there are safe, enjoyable vacation options. You're going to have a good time most of the time. If you plan and you have knowledge, you won't be impacted by hurricanes. All of this is doable.
And you have the plus side of that. After the peak season, which is when the hurricane season starts, it's less crowded, it's less expensive. And these are
another great point.
Really good positions to put us in so that we can utilize those months where we actually have no international travel. Right. And then you have the interregional who know about hurricanes, who know what to do, who can fill our box. So that's what's to be also marketed.
Right.
And travel advisors also need to educate themselves on what insurance plans have the best weather coverage so that they can help their clients feel comfortable. If it does happen in the moment, you've got options.
Yes.
Yeah. Corinne, do you make your clients sign waivers? I mean, I would imagine every travel advisor now is telling their clients either take out a policy or.
Yeah. I have a COVID waiver, and then there's an insurance waiver, but also I grew up in Florida, so hurricane just doesn't mean much to me. So I'm always so confused when people are like, oh, you can't go because there's a hurricane. I'm like,
I've been in the Caribbean like every summer since I can't remember when.
Yeah.
It's like, come on.
And I was here for Maria and what's the other one? And I was in Dominican Republic, and it's just skirted us. But I mean,
it's not like an earthquake.
I was here. I'm not saying I wasn't scared, but I was here. Yeah. We missed category 5s. Yeah.
Also, some idea the islands say, you can plan somewhat for a hurricane.
But the islands also have
so rare. Like
what they do.
Yeah.
To mitigate the circumstances and how they react if it does happen whilst you're there. This is from our HDAs and our destination governments. Okay, so you do have a hurricane, you're afraid, but this is what we do. This is how we can help you. This is what we will promote so that you know.
Absolutely.
Right.
If something does happen.
We do need a complete rebranding around that. And then also, I think also when it comes to say segments like LGBTQ travelers, how do we handle safety with this is a segment that's growing and it's obviously can bring a lot of revenue for the Caribbean, but there's always been a thorny issue, as we know. How do you handle that? Do you, I mean, any of you address these issues in your work or deal with, handle or serve LGBT?
We certainly have been writing about instances where, opportunities and governments that have programs that support. Curacao is very good at this, working with LGBT groups and travelers, and there's some others in the Caribbean. We have to acknowledge that the Caribbean has a cultural, and religious exclusions and problems with LGBTQ people, which is quite unfortunate and impacts local communities in the Caribbean. So it's beyond at times a tourism issue. It's a community issue and a local issue that are unavoidably being addressed, if not solved, right now, because I think they can't be ignored, obviously, in our modern society. So hopefully these will, there is some progressiveness, but there's a long way to go, and it's again an instance where you'd work with somebody closely like Corinne, who knows a destination, who knows what the local atmosphere is, who knows what options might be preferable.
So what we've been doing, is as we contract our hotels and some of our tour operators, we initiate the conversation.
Okay.
And we let them know it's a huge market out there for that. And if you want to get on the ball, you got to go from a cultural, from an economic perspective. And so, as you say, it's a long way to go, but we've started initiating that conversation with them as we move through the different hotels.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, it's all comes down to DEI, right? And diversity, equity, inclusion. And really, the Caribbean also has issues with marketing to travelers of color, in my experience, for many years, which is a huge market, is growing, lucrative, particularly with the younger generations now that are up and coming, millennials, Gen Z, etc. Has that changed at all, or are we like still backwards in that area? I mean, is our Caribbean destination still valuing and promoting to the rich white tourist versus the multicultural American traveler? And how do we change that?
Well, I think primarily it's
that one.
It has been, I mean, you as I was traditionally used to seeing are white guests and Black servants. So, that is changing to some degree. And there are companies that are cognizant of the need to not only to market to Black people, to African Americans, but to diverse groups and to same-sex couples and same-sex groups. It is changing. The larger part of the market is still the more traditional market, so there's a lot more change that can happen. And, you know, I mean, on the part of the media, I think we should be continuing to push these stories and demand change, because that's the only way we're going to really, on our side, on the media side, impact change. I mean, it's you know, it has to start from the top down. I always say it has to start from leadership down.
Yeah,
as travel advisors, we need to also be showing those other faces in our social media. We can't always be looking for photos of white families on the beach holding hands, you know, like,
Great point.
we need to make an effort to look for more diversity in our own marketing efforts.
What about hoteliers? Do you ever ask them to pay more attention to DEI, or is that not? I mean, I feel like we all have a responsibility to kind of promote that and say, you know, why is your leadership not diverse? Why is your staff at the leadership level not diverse?
Actually, Vacation Express shows a video at their trainings, and I told them, I'm so glad you did that, because I got to see different ages, different races, different everything in that video, and it made me feel happier and more comfortable to work with you. Show your staff, like show everyone who's working there. Let us see who's behind the scenes. And honestly, most of this education always comes down to the people. We need to see the people in the destinations, the community and the workers and everyone, so that we can feel at least some kind of a human connection. And the trick is, I am part of the LGBTQ community. I would not take my wife on a vacation together to certain destinations because I am afraid. I'm not afraid at the resort. Yeah. So this gets tricky then. So if a gay couple comes to me and I'm like, well, sure, you can go there. You need to pay attention to your behavior off resort. The resort staff's going to treat you like gold, no problem. I hate that. I hate having that conversation. I dread it when someone comes to me looking for that, because I don't want it to be that way. But it makes, then we're tricked now back into the like, oh, you need to stay on resort to feel safe.
And at the end of the day, it's a lost opportunity for the destination. Also,
I think it's a conversation that has just started and is being pushed. I've heard Inter-Caribbean Airlines manager, CEO of them, really taking to task person saying, you know what, you're asking me to do certain things, but you're not doing, because all I'm seeing is white people. He's a white man on your images. So why can't you show me something real and something more factual, so that when I sell and you want me to lower my prices, and he was making a whole big point about the imagery and it's not working for him and his company in the Caribbean. So it was quite interesting.
Wow.
We have been taking that as well out into the community. You know, the people who really make the tourism work are the people in the community, the workers. And we've got to give them more credit and also show their faces more frequently.
Yes.
So it's a conversation that is starting, and it's going there. And I think we just have to keep pushing it.
Their faces.
Share their faces and their voices. We need to hear from them.
Yes. Yeah. You know, make them be present.
Right. So we're going to wrap up with just perhaps getting a comment from each of you on this overall question, which is, again, you know, traveling beyond the resorts in Mexico and the Caribbean, hugely important, not just, you know, because we want them to have immersive experiences and rich experiences, but also because at the end of the day, it's about economic impact. And after 2 years of a huge crisis, I can tell you, just being in the region, that people have been hit really hard. Destinations have been hit really hard. Tour operators are struggling still. And the mom and shop stores are struggling. The small businesses, the entrepreneurs, it's hugely important. And so with the rest of the world having this discussion right now at the tourism level, and really shifting their marketing and really shifting their approach towards what kind of tourism are we selling, you know, and they're pushing outdoor travel, biking, you know, wellness, and all of these different things, train travel, and what we don't have in the Caribbean. And so how do we ensure that the Caribbean doesn't fall behind if we stick with this old model of sea, sun, and sand, and if we don't aggressively push inclusion and all-inclusive traveling beyond the all-inclusive resort? Any wrap-up thoughts? Are we falling behind?
I think we all have to take responsibility for educating ourselves and others and sharing what we know. It is mutually beneficial for all of us. It makes money and the client has a better experience and comes away probably a better person, right, with better character. So there is really no losing. We just need to educate ourselves and be talking about these things and being open in the communication about how much it impacts the community when we do these things and how much it will impact your experience as a consumer.
Yeah, I have to agree. We just have to continue to be advocating in every way we feel is viable as individuals, and then as parts of organizations, as parts of groups, to make sure that these things are forefront, because that we are in danger of falling behind if we don't, because no one else is really going to take up the mantle except the people who understand, you know, the issues involved, understand the importance to local communities of having an investment in tourism. And that's something else that really has to happen. Governments have to figure out more ways to invest the people who work in tourism and who are involved in tourism in the proceeds of tourism. The proceeds fly out of the Caribbean countries and in a sense, and are not spent proportionately within the communities the way they need to be. So, you know, certainly from our point of view of media, we're going to continue to try and tell those stories. There are destinations that are putting out, using social media to do some messaging. Puerto Rico's good at that. You'd be surprised, a very large country, a very large Caribbean country is good at promoting local resources. They have a Live Boricua campaign that they just introduced. And they make a point of finding the cultural legacies, African, European, all of the cultural influences that make up Puerto Rico, and promoting that. And if we can see that in a lot of destinations, I mean, it's good for everybody. Like Corinne says, it's good for everybody. It's good for everyone.
For everyone, yeah.
Economically, for the suppliers, everyone. It would benefit everyone.
Yeah, I'll add to that. The stakeholders have to keep in mind that tourism is more aggressively competitive. We're not there in a wonder bag anymore. And so we need to do better of packaging of our uniqueness, expand our reach into more diverse markets, and stop just hitting the UK or certain specifics for different resorts. So we've got to just reach out there. We've got to also diversify our products within the tourism. It's not sun, sea, and sand anymore. We've got the ecotourism. We've got the nomads, the workers. We've got medical tourism that we can capitalize on in terms of you know, the relaxation and all of that, in terms of the wellness. We've got it all. We can use it, diversify it, instead of being so what's the term for it? You know, sticking to one main feature of that, sticking to one lane. So we've got a lot of work to do. Diversification, collaboration, we need to do all of that, and education, just to sum it in 3 words.
That's wonderful. And I hope everyone listens to your advice today. It was really golden. So thank you so much for your time. Corinne, Brian, Tessa, and Casey, really nice having you today.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah.